In 1944, the Allied pilots ruling the skies over Europe began to report a terrifying phenomenon. They weren't just seeing new planes, they were seeing a speed glitch in the fabric of reality. Out of the clouds, a sleek, shark-like silhouette would appear, moving at velocities that shouldn't have been physically possible. It didn't have a propeller, it didn't make the rhythmic thrum of a piston engine. Instead, it emitted a high-pitched, demonic shriek. Before the Allied gunners could even traverse their turrets, the object was gone, leaving behind nothing but the flaming wreckage of a B-17 flying fortress. This was the Messerschmitt Me 262, and for the first time in history, mankind had created a Physics Defier. While the rest of the world was perfecting the propeller glitch, squeezing every last ounce of horsepower out of massive, heavy V-12 engines, German engineers had leaped into a different dimension of engineering. The heart of this glitch was the Jumo 0004 axial flow turbojet engine. Traditional planes were limited by the propeller barrier. The moment the tips of a propeller blade reached the speed of sound, they lost efficiency and began to vibrate violently. The Me 262 bypassed this entire law of physics. By sucking air into a massive intake, compressing it, mixing it with fuel, and detonating it in a continuous explosion out the back, the Me 262 achieved a top speed of 540 miles per hour, 870 kilometers per hour. This was nearly 100 miles per hour faster than the fastest Allied P-51 Mustang. In the air, that 100-mile-per-hour difference wasn't just a gap. It was a total tactical reset. But the speed was so extreme that it created a combat glitch for the pilots themselves. At 500-plus miles per hour, the Me 262 was moving too fast for traditional dogfighting. If a German pilot tried to turn and burn with an ally, the centrifugal forces would be so high the plane would rip its own wings off. The pilots had to invent a new way to kill. They utilized boom and zoom tactics, diving from 30,000 feet like a mechanical falcon, firing their four 30mm Mk-108 cannons, and then soaring back up into the stratosphere before the Allies could even register they were under attack. One 30mm shell was enough to blow the wing off a heavy bomber, and the Me 262 carried 4 of them. It was the ultimate delete button in the sky. The most insane part of this speed glitch was the aerodynamics. To handle these subsonic speeds, the Me 262 featured swept-back wings, a design so far ahead of its time that the Allies wouldn't fully master it for another decade. This wing sweep delayed the onset of shock waves that would usually tear a plane apart at high speeds. When Allied scientists finally captured an Me 262 after the war, they realized their own aviation tech was a generation behind. The Me 262 wasn't just a jet, it was a 21st century weapon that had accidentally glitched into 1944. It was a machine that defied the physics of its era, proving that in the race for the sky, the one who breaks the rules of speed is the one who rewritten the rules of war.
In the history of warfare, there is no greater example of a strategic glitch than the sabotage of the Me 262. By 1943, the German Luftwaffe had the most advanced weapon on the planet, a jet that could have single-handedly ended the Allied bombing campaign and reclaimed the skies over Europe. It was a winning glitch sitting on a silver platter. But then it encountered the one force more destructive than an Allied bomb, the ego of Adolf Hitler. This is the story of how the most advanced fighter jet in history was nearly deleted by its own leadership. The strategic glitch began during a high-level demonstration of the Me 262. When Hitler saw the jet's incredible speed, he didn't see an interceptor that could save his cities from fire. He saw a blitz bomber. In a moment of pure tactical delusion, he issued a direct command:
The world's first air superiority fighter was to be redesigned into a high-speed bomber. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a system-wide crash. The Me-262 was designed to be a scalpel, light, fast, and agile. Turning it into a bomber meant adding heavy bomb racks, aiming equipment, and weight that the delicate Jumo 004 engines weren't built to carry. This decision caused a relocation glitch that lasted for an entire critical year. Engineers were forced to waste thousands of man-hours undoing the plane's perfection just to satisfy a dictator's fantasy. While the industrial avalanche of the United States was pumping out thousands of P-51 Mustangs and B-17s, the German jet program was stalled in a bureaucratic nightmare. The pilots, the men who actually had to fly into the lead storm, were screaming for the jet to be used as a fighter. General of the fighters, Adolphe Galland, famously told his superiors that he would rather have one Me-262 than 10 propeller-driven Bf-109s, but his pleas were ignored. This created a timing glitch that changed the course of the war. If the Me-262 had entered mass production as a fighter in 1943, the Allied daylight bombing strategy would have been a suicide mission. The jet was so fast that Allied escorts simply couldn't have protected the bombers. By the time Hitler finally realized his error and allowed the Me-262 to be used as a fighter in late 1944, the glitch was too big to fix. The Allies had already achieved total air supremacy. The German fuel supplies were drying up, and their factories were being pulverized into dust. The Me-262 was a 21st century weapon held back by 19th century thinking. It proves that even the most perfect piece of glitch engineering can be rendered useless if the operating system at the top is corrupted. The Fuhrer's mistake ensured that the most revolutionary aircraft ever built would go down in history as a what-if rather than a game over.
When the Me-262 finally entered the fray as a fighter, it triggered a combat glitch that shattered every tactical manual in existence. For 3 years, the Allies had perfected the art of the box formation, flying hundreds of bombers together so their machine guns created a literal wall of lead. Against every other German plane, this worked, but against the Me-262, the wall of lead was a ghost. The jet was moving so fast that it didn't just bypass the defenses, it glitched through them. Allied gunners, trained to lead their targets based on propeller speeds, found themselves firing at empty air. By the time they tracked the jet, it had already fired its 30mm cannons and vanished back into the clouds. This was the execution glitch, the moment technology outpaced human reaction time. To the Allied pilots, the Me-262 was the ultimate boss fight. It created a psychological glitch known as jet fever. P-51 Mustang pilots, the elite of the U.S. Air Force, were suddenly terrified. They were flying the best propeller planes in the world, and they were still being hunted like prey. The Allies had to exploit a system vulnerability just to survive. They realized the Me-262 had a reload glitch. Its engines were incredibly temperamental and required a long, slow approach to land. The Allies began a tactic called rat-catching. They didn't try to fight the jets in the air where they were gods. They sat over the German airfields and waited for the jets to slow down to land. It was the only way to kill a god, catch it when it was forced to be human. The air battles of 1945 became a surreal lead avalanche in reverse. One legendary unit, Jagdverband 44, known as the Squadron of Experts, was composed entirely of Germany's highest-scoring aces flying the Me-262. In a single engagement, a handful of these jets could dive into a formation of 1,000 bombers and cause total system failure. The 30mm shells didn't just punch holes, they detonated, blowing B-17s into scrap metal in a single hit. This was the execution glitch. But despite the jet's technical god mode, the industrial avalanche of the Allies was simply too large to be deleted. For every jet the Germans built, the Americans built 100 Mustangs. Even a Physics Defier couldn't win a war against the sheer math of the U.S. assembly line. In the end, the Me-262's combat legacy is the ultimate historical glitch. It was a weapon from the future that arrived too late to change the past. When the war ended, the Allies didn't just celebrate, they scrambled to steal every Me-262 they could find. This glitch became the foundation for the American F-86 Sabre and the Soviet MiG-15. The Me-262 didn't save the Third Reich, but it hacked the future of aviation forever. It proved that in the arena of war, a single high-speed glitch can be more terrifying than 1,000 traditional soldiers. But even a god can be buried under an avalanche of numbers.